So I was wondering if you could share some practice tips with viewers and maybe specifically about what you think goes into deliberate practice and productive practicing.
I think, okay, yeah, this is a great question because I not too long ago had a 3-day workshop called How to Practice Like a Ninja. So one of the biggest themes I had, well, it was split into the basics and then mindset and then specific strategies and techniques. But you're asking about specific techniques. Okay, so specific techniques, one of them I really like to talk about is this is built on a foundation of being mindful and, as you mentioned, deliberate practice. As we know, deliberate practice is the way to accelerate our progress in the practice room. If we are tuned out thinking about Facebook or what's on Netflix, whatever we do inside the practice room is not going to serve us in an efficient way. It's just not. You might as well be out to lunch. And that I'm guilty of that a lot because sometimes I'll have my mind split, distracted. And this is another reason why I incorporate a short meditation before I practice, which I did talk about in my workshop. So once you set the foundation of being mindful, then on top of that, a specific practice strategy that I like to think about is that, first of all, one has to observe what you're outputting, right? Whatever's coming out of your instrument, are you actually paying attention? And I'm starting to realize that many people are on autopilot and just producing out of their instrument, producing. I vaguely hear something that's not right. I'll just hammer it out and do it again. This is not deliberate practice. This is not mindful at all. So then I created the role of the detective. The detective brings out the magnifying glass. Ooh, what is that? Wait a second. What? So the detective has to ask specific questions when you're practicing. Like what, why, and how. So I'd like to assume the role, put on the hat, get out the magnifying glass. When you play something, the first question to ask is, what? Okay, well, usually a person will stop in the practice room, or whether you're playing something for a teacher, there's a reason a student will stop. And then I take that opportunity, I jump right in there and I say, wait, why did you stop? What is it you stopped for? Are you asking these questions? So same thing in the practice room. When I stop or stumble, there's always a what. What exactly was it that went wrong? What went wrong? That's the first question to ask. And maybe it's just a thing was out of tune, or it was sloppy, untimed string crossing, whatever. You have to answer that question first. That is a sign of being mindful, that you're actually paying attention. And I tell my students, you have to have the ears, like huge elephant ears. Are they on? And that's the equivalent of the magnifying glass, right? Basically, magnifying glasses here. So that's the detective, the role of the detective. And then, the detective asks, what was it? And then the why is really important. Well, tell me, why did that not go as well as you wanted? There's always a reason. Well, if it was simply out of tune, maybe it's because a simple solution could be, I was out to lunch. I wasn't actually mindful. Maybe that's as simple as that question, that answer. Or it could be, I did not prepare my finger soon enough, or my hand frame was not in proper shape. There's always an answer to that question. And if you cannot answer the question why, then you need to go back and play it so that the detective can catch it. Okay, and that relates to how you practice. There's different techniques. You can practice more slowly. Oh, why do we practice more slowly? Oh, so the detective can actually have a chance to hear what's going on. That's why we practice more slowly. So what, why? And then the third question is how. Once you figured out what exactly you wanted to fix, and why did it happen that way? And then you ask this question, how, right? How are you going to fix this? This is when you hand over the task to the second role. So you take off that detective hat, and then you put on your lab coat, and you become a scientist. This is where you start tinkering. Well, I've learned this practice technique, that practice technique, this practice technique, and I can try that. Oh, my teacher taught me that. Maybe I'll try it. This is where the scientist comes up with experiments in the practice room. Okay, if I practice in rhythms, I may be able to correct the evenness of that passage. Or if I turn on a tuner drone, I may be able to correct inaccurate intonation. So the scientist has to create these experiments in the practice room. And so once they create these experiments, then the scientist hands the task over to the third role. You take off the lab coat, put on your running shoes. You're now the athlete. Athlete is the one who's responsible for the reps, right? The training. You get into the gym, you get onto the track and field, and you start practicing. You start to implement. Let's try this technique. Let's say scientist gave me this role. Okay, I'm going to try this out. Okay, let me try it. Like you're shooting a shot, 3-pointer. Okay, you're going to do a bat. You're going to do a putt, whatever. You're going to experiment. Does that work? Doesn't work. Hey, that experiment didn't work. Then you go back into the detective. You go back into the scientist. You go. These 3 roles they revolve so fast. They're all together like one three-headed team, 3-headed human being. So this to me is how you can become a more deliberate practicer. This is essential. To me, that's essential.
What an amazing framework. I love that everything you talked about can be applied not only to musicians and artists, but really to any practice in our lives.